Does it feel like every part of your life is divided? Every scenario, every environment, your church, your school, your work, your friends, left, right, conservative, liberal, religious, secular. It seems you always have to take a side. This is a conversation between a progressive Christian and a conservative atheist who happen to be great friends. Welcome to Living on Common Ground.
Do you think if we met today, we would still be friends?
I don't know, but we're friends now.
A mob is no less a mob because they're with you.
Man, so what? We won a few games. And y'all fools think that's something? Man, that ain't nothing, y'all. And you know what else? We ain't nothing either. Yeah, we came together in camp. Cool. But then we're right back here and the world tells us that they don't want us to be together. We fall apart like we ain't a damn bit of nothing, man.
All right. So I stand corrected. It's nihilism.
I don't think it is. I think you can say it both ways.
I don't mind being wrong. It happens all the time.
I don't mind telling you you're wrong when you're wrong.
All right. Yeah, I mean, you should, because it doesn't happen often. So
got to take opportunities when they present themselves.
Okay, so to get us started, I am going to allow this person on TikTok, which I'm still not on, to tell us exactly
That's
what.
okay. It's still listening to you, even if you're not on
what nihilism is. All right. And I cannot get it to start from the very beginning, so we might miss where he says what is nihilism. But anyway, here we go. It's short. Hold on, I said here we go, and
it's good radio, man.
Well, well, the ridiculous part is, it's annoying because TikTok won't allow me to anyway. I'm not gonna. This is not about how bad.
Yeah, we're
TikTok
probably gonna get
is.
sued now. That's good.
Great. Okay, here we go.
Nihilism. For some, it's just the idea that life has no inherent meaning or value. This is what's referred to as passive nihilism. Now, some might associate that type of nihilism with the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche, but they would be very wrong. Nietzsche is critical of that type of nihilism because he thinks it turns people away from the creation of value. He was an active nihilist, meaning that the proper response to a lack of meaning or truth in society is to create it for ourselves. So while a passive nihilist might see the world as an empty and meaningless place, the active nihilist would see it as a blank canvas for the creation of something new. So when we're pointing out the passive nihilism in culture, media, and society, we're also pointing to the possibility for active nihilism to create new values in the world. So to all our fellow nihilists out there, cheers.
Cheers to you.
Okay. I like the way you did that. All right. So I think that that's a really great distinction, right? So passive and active. So are you an active nihilist?
Well, I mean, that was a very short description.
Great.
I mean,
I figured the episode could be about 5 minutes long because I'm just kidding.
Solve it.
Yeah, we'll solve it. We're going to solve it.
Yeah, it reminds me of a clip that we played, I don't know if it was a year ago or 6 months ago or what, but when we were talking about Joseph Campbell, the anthropologist, historian, mythologist, in his the series of interviews that he gave to Stephen Moyer at the end of his life. And the question was about meaning, the meaning of life. And here's Joseph Campbell, who has spent his entire life studying myths and trying to, not just studying them, but trying to bring the meaning of these myths to modern people, and help them understand that these stories have deep resonance. They are not irrelevant. The human experience continues and always will continue forever and ever. Amen. And he says, well, of course life has no meaning. That what we mean when we talk about life having meaning is we really are talking about human life.
Mm-hmm.
It's what we're always talking about, because he goes, a shrew lives, mold lives.
Mm-hmm.
There's no meaning.
Right.
There's no end. There's no purpose. It's just life. It just is. And so that's how I think of when I think about nihilism. I think it's, again, one of these things that is inescapable to me when I think about it philosophically.
Sure.
But I mean, we've talked about this in the past, where I also don't, at this point, it was very, very helpful for me.
Mm-hmm.
Nihilism was very, very helpful for me 10 years ago.
Okay.
And that is because, to me, the idea for myself, for me, Lucas,
Mm-hmm.
the idea that at some point I'm going to die and that will be it. And there's no finish line, goal line, it just is. Everyone that I've ever known or ever will know will die and be forgotten, just like everyone else before us. It was, whereas I can understand for a lot of people that is very upsetting.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was so relieving. It was such a relief. And that was mostly because my identity is based on, is like foundationally a deep knowledge that I am a disappointment. And so embracing the idea that I'm nothing and nothing is anything, it just is, was very relieving to me. Now, that was 10 years ago. I have kids now, kids who are growing and developing.
Mm-hmm.
They're not 30 years old. They're 13 and 16,
right.
17, whatever. He's going to be 17. And it's not as helpful now. It's not as relieving. It doesn't relieve me to think about the nothingness.
Right.
Because I always did say, even in that experience of no meaning, I still always went, but of course I have desires. I have desires. I have values. I have motivations. From whence they come, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Neither does anybody else. But I have them. And I know that some of them are to be courageous, be honorable, be truthful, right? Be compassionate, be to all of these things, not steal, not, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so I would always say that. Now it is far more important to me at this stage of my life, with my kids being at the place that they're at developmentally. It's just a lot more important to me to lean into the subjective experience that I have, which is we need to have a vision for the ideal and to be developing into that. And I want to develop into that. I want to look at the parts of myself that seem to be reactive or seem to just fall into a habit and go, let me change that. Let me be deliberate, mostly to try to be an example for my kids, So that's where I am now. I don't reject it. It's just not as helpful to me as it used to be. I'm very grateful for it and what it was.
Sure.
What it has
well,
been.
So, when you said that, of course, now my mind goes to Memento Mori.
Yeah.
And so I think that it can shift, right? So at one point maybe you find comfort in that, but I think also it can shift into then it gives it gives more value to the time you get to spend with your kids and things like that.
Yeah.
Right. Also, I would just say this, that a deep knowledge of the fact that you're a disappointment. I know some Lucas groupies that would disagree with that.
Oh.
But anyway, all right. Couple thoughts as you're talking. I looked it up. Nihilism is, so the terms that he uses where he talks about active and passive, those aren't necessarily, as far as I can tell, commonly used.
They're
terms.
not like technical terms. Yeah. He's just kind of using those.
Because you've actually got,
fine.
because they'll say that there's 3 branches of nihilism. I think what he's describing is what I might call the potential outcomes of nihilism.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
And so one of them would be called pessimism, right? Which is what I think he called what he described as passive, right? So that there's just a nothingness.
Yeah.
And so here it talks about how it might lead to despair and hopelessness.
Yeah.
And it has been my experience that when someone says that, unless you can believe in, connecting back to the last episode, that you can believe that there is an objective truth, that eventually you end up in nihilism. That's what they're describing.
Yeah, what they mean is despair and misery and hopelessness.
Yes, so they're actually misusing, I would say, the concept, or they're using the common the common perception of nihilism.
It's the common vernacular.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. It's very similar to how people will use the term narcissist. Narcissist has a psychological.
There's an actual.
Definition.
Yeah, that's an actual diagnosis that we
Right.
like to throw around with anybody that thinks too much of themselves.
That's right.
Yeah.
We think of them as like prideful, and so we call them a narcissist.
A narcissist, right? Yeah, and I mean, because let's be honest. There are times when I fall into that category, and then there's other times when I am the complete opposite of whatever that might be.
Sure.
Right. So we all run those gamuts, and I think that we all have that. But then the potential outcome in this article I'm looking at would say optimistic nihilism, which I think is what he would call the active. So I think he's taking the potential outcomes and turning them into branches, which is a little. I get what he's doing, and that's fine. But this is basically suggests that since there is no inherent meaning, that individuals create their own meaning and life purpose.
And I think that again, that's a statement that to me is just prima facie true.
Right.
It just seems on its face.
Yeah.
I just repeated myself, but anyway,
that's okay.
And I like that he's talking about Nietzsche's actual positions. It reminds me of Nietzsche's statement that God is dead, which is interpreted again in our common vernacular as like some sort of gloating on the part of Nietzsche, which it was exactly the opposite. It was all wrapped up in this idea that society has killed the concept of God. We have become completely secular, and that is a problem. It's a problem because we had, before we thought about it, almost kind of prior to reaching up and grabbing the apple off the tree, prior to that, we could live forever, right? Because we didn't have a concept of death. So you could live forever. Conceptually, I mean, this is all mythological.
Sure.
Prior to, in Nietzsche's estimation, prior to the awakening that he saw society having, which is, there is no greater force directing all of this, right? Prior to that, we didn't think about it, and so then our meaning of life was inherent. We just had it because we knew, not believed, we knew that there was this force we called God, which directed. And so his estimation is we've killed that, and now we are spinning out into nothingness, and we have to create it on our own. And that is a real problem for society. It would have been better, maybe, if we could have stayed, without the knowledge that God is dead.
Yeah.
Again, I'm kind of paraphrasing Nietzsche here.
Well, and so whenever I've heard nihilism, I've always connected it to Nietzsche. But apparently there was someone prior to him, a Russian author, Ivan Turgenev. Have you ever heard of that?
I have heard his name. I don't know much about him.
I don't know anything. I'm sitting here looking at an article and I just read it and I was like, that's interesting. In fact, it's his picture that pops up. So, all right.
Well, and I would suggest anyone listening to this who wants to hear a really good conversation or discussion about Nietzsche and nihilism and all of this. To listen to Martyr Maid's episode where he talks about Nietzsche and Dostoevsky together.
I still reference that when I talk to people.
Yeah, it's a really good episode.
Yeah. So branches, according to this article, slightly different than what our TikTok video shared with us. Existential nihilism, the belief that life is without purpose and that existence is ultimately meaningless, which is a little bit what you were describing. I want to park there for a second because it allows me to circle back. I completely agree with, who was it again that talked about whenever we talk about meaning of life, we're always talking about human life?
Joseph Campbell.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yes, whenever we start talking about meaning of life or life having meaning, we're talking about it's sort of again, sort of like the unspoken understanding that that's what we're talking about is human life, right? But as I was reading the Hunter-Gatherer's Guide to the 21st Century, there was something in there that was said that really sort of got me thinking. Well, there's a lot of things in there that really got me thinking, but this one connects to this in my mind. And they talked about how two plants that are the same plant, that one of them develops like poison and becomes inedible. And then the other one, though, becomes a great source for nutrition. The same plant. And they said this. They said the one has evolved this way because it has a desire to not die.
Anthropomorphizing plants.
Yes. And then I know you and I had this conversation on Sunday because I'm thinking through all this stuff, right? And so I'm trying to figure out, like, I'm trying to think about, again, I've been thinking a lot about, obviously, faith all the time. And I've been thinking about physics and energy, right? And that it's all energy. I mean, there's a little bit of matter, but the vast majority of reality is energy. And I'm butchering this as I'm talking about it, but then I was trying to think to myself. Actually, I was having a conversation with Gary the day before on Saturday, and I was thinking to myself, like, I can't wrap my mind around completely embracing evolution.
Okay,
right? Because I think at some point I go back and I'm like, man, that's a huge leap to be able to say that happened, right? And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, okay, so energy. Let's think about energy. So you have energy that expands, and it causes this big bang, right? And then from there, let's just stick with evolution for a minute. And this is all going to come back to nihilism, I think. I'm going to try. I'm really trying. And so anyway.
So we're back at the Big Bang.
Back at the Big Bang, and I'm going to bring it all the way to here.
Yeah, all right.
And then you end up with a single cell organism on this rock.
You're going all Vladimir Putin on us.
How's that?
You ask a question about nihilism, you got to take it back to the Big Bang.
You do. And so then you end up on this rock that we're on, that and a single cell organism begins to what? And all I can think of is that there must be something, the energy that makes up that single cell organism, there must be a desire to survive. And I can't think of it, like I cannot, and again, is that anthropomorphizing this? Yes. But I can't think of a better way of trying to understand what's happening for that single cell organism to split and to continue to evolve and to eventually develop into something that every phase of its development is in order to help it survive. And so what is that? What is that? There's this will, this apparent will to survive. So then the only reason I bring all that up is because if we get to this idea that that life is without purpose and that existence is ultimately meaningless, I would look at that single cell organism and I would think to myself, again, it doesn't believe that. Because it's striving to survive.
Yeah. You're getting back to the fundamental question of existence. Why does anything exist? The reality is, I think nobody really knows.
That is true.
But it's funny when I teach, I've taught a macro econ class for homeschoolers for a long time. And when I teach the class, I usually start off with a lecture about trying to get them to understand what economics really is. And a lot of times the conversation goes back to what we have to realize is that all of existence wants to continue to exist. We don't really know why. That's where I start, because I'm not going to go back beyond that.
That appears to me to be true.
It seems like existence wants, for lack of a better term, to continue. Don't know why.
And why does it start to begin with, right?
Yeah, I mean, why do you're talking about entropy, and what's the opposite of entropy? I don't actually know the term. I'm sure there's a term for the opposite of entropy.
It's interesting because entropy just showed up in something else I was studying.
But like, why do atoms?
I think it's enthalpy. That has to do with energy.
Because to me, the process of evolution by natural selection, it makes absolute perfect sense on a long enough time frame.
Say that one more time.
Evolution by natural selection. It just makes perfect sense to me. As long as you've got enough time to explain it, then it makes sense to me that nothing is trying to get better, quote unquote. Nothing's trying to do anything, except existence is trying to continue. That's the only thing. And then environmental pressures push in metaphorically on the sides of all life, changing its form. That's all evolution to me is. It's just the pressures of the environment pushing in on the side of life.
Sure. And so that has to adapt in order if it wants to continue to live.
Well, I would say it just does adapt.
It would have to if it wants to continue to survive.
Because existence seems to
want to survive.
Want to continue.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Negentropy.
I will say that, like, again, this is where the argument from existence for deistic God and or a theistic God
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really convince me, because I just think that the arguments just back up one step, call it God, and then stop there. And I just say, I don't need to back up. I'm fine with just having existence be, because I think that that's how everyone is fine with. They just call it God,
Sure.
and then that is existence. But the question is well put. I don't know why. I don't know.
Well,
But it just seems like everything just is.
I do know people that would argue against you, and say that there's more to God than just the backing up one more step. I don't happen to be one of them.
I mean, it's the uncreated creator. I'm saying that particular.
Yeah, and
I'm saying that particular argument of when you get into debates about the existence of God, and one of the arguments is something from nothing. The concern about you can't have something from nothing. Why is there something instead of nothing? And built into that question is the answer of you can't have something from nothing. Therefore, you must have a creator that created it. And I would say
the something, yeah.
You generated the something from nothing. And I would say, but of course, because when I was growing up in the faith, deep in the faith in a apologetics type way, I accepted that as a truism. Like, obviously these people who are rejecting this position just haven't thought of this, because this is they're putting themselves in such an obvious corner. You can't have something from nothing. Therefore, you have to have a creator. It has to have been created. And for whatever reason, I never considered, because the concept of God was outside of the realm of what I considered. So I just never considered the fact that if I was going to use that argument, I would have to use that argument for the creator, which of course would be uncreated. And so how could that possibly be? But of course, those rules don't have to apply.
Come from?
Right. That's the issue.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I think anytime that you try to take faith or theory or whatever, and you try to say that beyond any shadow of a doubt, this is the truth of it, right? Objectively, this is the truth. You have painted yourself into a corner.
Yeah, and by the way, I want to say I actually have no problem with somebody who will say, that it doesn't actually make logical sense, and it does. That's fine, because that's okay. The problem is if we want to start using the rules of logic, well, then those rules have to apply all the way through the argument. You don't get to use the rules and then stop using the rules. But I am fine with saying, actually, these rules don't apply, and I don't have a reason. But of course, that's a problem most of the time, because that means that you have to take yourself out of the logic conversation. And whether people realize it or not, rationality and logic are the currency. That's the currency of respectability in our society. And so you don't want to do that. If you're a theologian, if you're a theist or a deist, you don't want to take yourself out of that conversation, because that's going to hurt you socially, which I understand. So you kind of want to have it both ways. You want to operate within the realms of the society that we're in and have the social respectability, but also reject those same rules when you run into kind of the backstop of what those rules can support. Anyway, Yeah,
you mentioned about the respectability stuff. I was actually having a conversation this morning with someone about how we have like communication and debate the like following those rules is gone. And I think that we're losing respectability and respect for each other, and it's showing. Again, it's another circular thing, but because we've lost, and I know it's a different direction. Okay, moral nihilism, the view that there is no objective basis for morality. Right and wrong are human conventions, not inherent truths. This was a big discussion at that Conversation Coalition a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And again, that conversation ground to a halt when one side refused to believe or refused to acknowledge that even their position required some subjectivity.
Well, this is a concern for all people, I think. You know, I think it is again, I can hear my left-leaning friends and my right-leaning friends, my conservative friends and my progressive friends, all concerned about the rejection of the idea of an objective morality. Because on what standard would you, on what foundation would you stand to again say that racism was wrong?
Right.
On what foundation are you going to stand to say that? Well, that there is another primary virtue of our modern society, I think, is empathy. Now, I know that some people will say, well, that's not true because some people don't have empathy, or they don't have enough empathy, or they don't care about empathy. Be that as it may, no one can tolerate in our society, typically, being identified as someone who doesn't have empathy. And you can see this, like someone will have an argument and someone else will say, well, that's racist, for instance. That's a racist position. And what will the first person do? The person A who made the statement or the argument or whatever, they won't say, yes, it is. What will they do? They'll say, no, it's not racist because X. Now, person B might reject that rationalization, but the fact still remains that person A cannot tolerate being called a racist or a sexist or a whatever, right? You'll reject that label. Why? Because because empathy is a primary virtue that we all want to have, right? And so I can hear my progressive religious friends saying,
I see you looking at me.
Saying, well, at the end of the day, God is love.
Yeah. By the way, I reject being called a progressive, but go ahead.
Okay. That's fine. No, that's fine. That's fine.
I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, that's right. You can do whatever you want.
I live in a nihilistic world.
There you go. But that right there, right? You'll hear someone say, well, I'm not holding on to a whole lot of positions, with certainty. All I know is God is love, or love is the most important thing, or all we need is love, or whatever, right? Love is okay. So there's your objective truth,
right?
That you've backed up into.
All right.
So you still have one.
All right. I think that the real issue.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get too
You're about
much
to get to the objective
I
issue.
I don't want to get too much back into the objective because that was last week.
Yeah.
But I do a couple things. One is, I think the real argument is the source of objective truth. Where does it come from?
Sure.
That's the actual argument.
Sure.
Is it a social construct, or is it a divinely given? Right?
Yeah.
Is it divinely given, or is it something that over the course of millennia has developed in order for the sustainability and the is an example of negentropy. I'm going to start using that term. As that how the morality has developed. Okay, so that's just a thought. The other thing too is I really appreciate the fact that you used the terms conservative and progressive, because I've also been thinking about this, and as I was listening to 2 weeks ago's podcast, I said something in there. I hate this happens all the time. This is one of the things. This is another reason I've been doing a lot of writing lately. Is because when I'm writing, I can be very careful with the words I use. When I'm speaking, sometimes I use a word I don't necessarily mean. Right?
This happens to me when I re-listen to our episodes, and I go,
hate it.
Yeah,
I didn't.
I should have changed that or whatever.
I shouldn't have said that, right?
Yeah.
And I use the word fundamentalist. Here's what I think, and this is the reason I appreciate what you're doing. What you said is that there are all kinds of fundamentalists. There are progressive fundamentalists. There are conservative fundamentalists within the Christian tradition, right?
Sure, yeah.
There are Democrat fundamentalists. There are Republican fundamentalists. There are atheist fundamentalists. There are libertarian fundamentalists. To me, it's the person who holds a position with complete certainty and that everyone else is wrong.
Yeah.
That's to me what I think, what I'm coming around to believe is fundamentalism.
Yeah.
So I don't think that, and I think you were kind of hinting at that, or maybe you just came out and said it, but with just different words.
Yeah.
Is that your progressive friends that you're talking about when we're talking about moral nihilism, and this, and what do we do if there is no objective truth type stuff? It's often the fundamentalist of both perspectives that will, and it goes back to the idea that of course there's objective truth. I know it. And so really the debate becomes, what's the source of the objective truth? And then that can be broken down and continue to discuss. Okay.
Well, it's another way of saying something that I've enjoyed saying over and over again, which is that God always loves the things I love and hates the things that I hate.
Sure.
Always. Right? Even if it's something that that maybe I'm not doing correctly right now, or I feel like I should be blah, blah, blah. Well, the fact that I think I should be is an indication that I value this thing, which of course God is not going to, my God is not going to be for something that I actually think is a wrong thing. Otherwise, it wouldn't be God.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I cannot wait for you to read what I'm working on right now. I don't know when it'll end up published, but I think I really want to hear I'm going to publish it before I let you read it though, because I don't want you to tear it apart first. I want it to get out there. All right. So the final one is branch that's in this article is epistemological nihilism, the position that knowledge is impossible or that true reality is unknowable. I think that goes back to my argument last week or my suggestion last week that objective truth may exist, but it's not actually attainable. And so I guess in the strictest sense of it, I would be a Christian nihilist.
Yeah.
Which then I would be told by some persons that I know but there's all kinds of reasons that I would be told I'm not a real Christian. And I just say you're wrong. And I'm certain about that.
Yeah, that's right. There you go.
All right.
And what's your reason for that? I don't have one. How about that?
All right. Do you have anything you want to say about epistemological nihilism? Otherwise, we're going to wrap this up.
Well, I will say this. I think that epistemology is very, very, very important. And I do think I like a society that believes that epistemological rigor and correct epistemological methods are valuable. I like a society that believes that. And I want a society that believes that. And I don't like the idea that we just start as a society tearing down our epistemological Chesterton gates, Chesterton fences, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which I now know what that means after, I think you had to tell me like 3 times before I finally remembered that.
I am always going to
and
be
then
on
I
the
read
side.
it, Hunter and Gatherer's Guide for the 21st Century. That's where I read it. I was like, aha, I know what it is.
And you know where Lucas got it.
Is that where you got it?
I didn't get it from their book, but I think Brett was probably the first person. It was either Brett or Heather was the first person that I heard use the analogy. Now you all know. But I'm just always going to be on the side of, in our present time, keeping what is. Not that I think that reform should not exist,
mm-hmm.
and not in this particular circumstance that I think that our particular epistemological methods are perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, I don't think that. However, I'm going to be on the side of let's keep them the way that they are. Everyone else can argue on the other side, and hopefully will come out in some sort of, better evolved way
mm-hmm.
down the line. But starting from the position of there is no epistemological truth, no epistemological methods that are better than others, therefore tear them all down, and let's just whichever. This is expressed in the phrase different ways of knowing.
Mm.
So you'll hear this sometimes. This is a critical theory area as well. That there are different ways of knowing. You'll hear people talk about indigenous ways of knowing or mythological ways of knowing,
mm-hmm.
right? And I just it's not that I don't think that in a vacuum those things don't have some interest and value, but I am on the side of keeping things the way that they are and applying epistemological rigor to the things that we think we know, because
mm-hmm.
I would like bridges to continue to be built by particular specifications and planes to continue to fly,
mm-hmm.
And again, I know that that's not perfect. I see a lot more tearing down than keeping the status quo, and so I'll just stand with keeping the status quo.
Keep it for now.
Not hoping that it'll never change, but just hoping that the change will be very, very, very slow.
Sure. All right, let's wrap this up. So,
all right.
We're going to use our friend from the beginning of the episode. We're going to use his language, active and passive.
Yeah.
Our common ground is that we both seem to, in our own way, adhere to active nihilism.
I think it sounds like it.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like both of us are trying to create our own meaning.
Yeah, I think so. All right.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Thank you for listening to Living on Common Ground. Please follow wherever you listen to your podcasts and share it with your friends. You can also find a link to our social in the description. The more people we have living on common ground, the better the world will be.